Beamy, 25 years old male, work as a remote data analyst for a mid-sized logistics company. The job is decent, pays the bills, but it is incredibly isolating. Spend 8 hours a day staring at spreadsheets and SQL queries. My apartment is a small one-bedroom in the city, nice enough, but the walls feel like they are closing in by 2 in the afternoon. To maintain my sanity, I developed a routine of working from a local coffee shop called the Roastery. It is one of those places with exposed brick walls, excessive amounts of plants, and indie folk music playing just a little too loudly. The coffee is overpriced, but the internet is fast, and being around other humans stops me from talking to my refrigerator. This story starts about 6 months ago, right when winter was turning into a slushy, gray spring. I had my usual spot in the back corner near the outlet, away from the heavy foot traffic. That is when I first noticed her. Let us call her Sienna. Sienna was striking, but in a way that suggested she did not realize it, or perhaps did not care. She had messy, dark curls that were usually tied up in a chaotic bun held together by a single clip fighting for its life. She wore oversized hoodies that swallowed her frame, usually with leggings and beat-up sneakers. But what caught my attention was not her appearance. It was her absolute, unwavering focus on her phone. I am not talking about checking texts or sending emails. I am talking about the thousand-yard stare of the digital abyss. She would sit at the table across from me, a pristine MacBook open in front of her, totally ignored. Her thumb would move in a rhythmic, hypnotic upward swipe. Swipe, swipe, swipe. Her eyes were glazed over, reflecting the blue light of the screen even in the middle of the day. Sometimes her expression would shift slightly. A micro frown at a bad headline, a brief exhale of air through her nose at a funny video. But mostly she looked like she was under a spell. I found myself watching her more than I should have, mostly out of confusion. She would be there for hours. Sometimes I would arrive at 9 in the morning and she would already be there. I would leave for lunch, come back, and she would be in the exact same position, the coffee beside her gone cold. It was doomscrolling in its purest, most terrifying form. I wondered what she did for a living. Maybe she was a student avoiding a thesis. Maybe she was unemployed and hiding from the world. Regardless, she was beautiful, and it felt like a waste to see her sucked into the matrix like that. Weeks went by without us ever speaking. We were just familiar strangers, sharing the same ambient noise and caffeine fumes. I created a narrative in my head that she was unapproachable. She had her AirPods in constantly, a clear do not disturb sign to the world. Then came the Tuesday the internet died. It was a rainy afternoon, the kind that makes everyone inside feel a little more huddled together. Suddenly, the music cut out. The hum of conversation grew louder as people realized their Spotify streams had stopped. My connection to the server dropped. I looked up, annoyed, and saw the baristas frantically poking at the router behind the counter. Then I looked at Sienna. It was like watching someone wake up from a coma. She tapped her screen furiously. She swiped down to refresh. The loading wheel spun and spun. She pulled one AirPod out, looking around with a mix of confusion and genuine panic. Her eyes darted around the room, finally locking onto mine because I was staring right at her. I decided to take the shot. I smiled a little and gestured to my laptop. "Router is down," I said, my voice sounding loud in the sudden absence of music. She blinked, processing the sound of a human voice. "Oh," she said, her voice raspy, like she had not used it all day. "I thought my phone was broken." She looked down at the device in her hand like it had betrayed her. "No," I said, closing my laptop. "Looks like a total outage. Might be a sign from the universe to take a break." She laughed, and it was a surprisingly nice sound, a little nervous but genuine. "I guess so," she said, slumping back in her chair. She rubbed her eyes, and I noticed dark circles under them. She looked exhausted, the kind of tired that sleep does not fix. "I am Julian, by the way," I said, leaning back in my chair. She hesitated for a second, then smiled. Sienna, she said, do you work here every day, Sienna? I asked. I feel like we are the only two people who practically pay rent at this table. She nervously tucked a loose curl behind her ear. Yeah, I am a freelance graphic designer, she said, or I am trying to be. Mostly I just come here to procrastinate in a public setting so I feel less guilty about it. I laughed. That is relatable, I said. I am in data analysis. I come here to pretend I have coworkers. The ice was broken, but barely. The internet came back on about 10 minutes later. The second the music started and the Wi-Fi icon solidified, I saw her hand twitch toward her phone. It was instinctual, but she stopped herself, looking at me instead. So data analysis, she said, sounds thrilling. It pays for the coffee, I said, and what about you? Designing anything cool? She sighed, glancing at her neglected MacBook. Supposed to be designing a logo for a boutique pet food brand, she said. But I have spent the last 3 hours watching videos of people restocking their refrigerators and reading conspiracy theories about the royal family. Her honesty was refreshing. Hey, I said, those refrigerators are not going to restock themselves. She chuckled, but there was a sadness in her eyes. It is bad, isn't it? She asked, her voice dropping. My brain feels like it is melting. I just cannot stop scrolling. It is like if I stop, I have to actually think about my life. I nodded, understanding more than she knew. The dopamine trap, I said, it is designed to keep you there. Do not beat yourself up too much. She smiled weakly. Thanks, Julian. She put her AirPods back in eventually, but that afternoon, I noticed she spent a little less time on the phone and a little more time actually sketching on her tablet. When she left, she gave me a small wave. It felt like a victory. Over the next few weeks, the dynamic shifted. We started sitting at the same table on purpose. I would get there first and save the chair opposite me. She would arrive looking disheveled and tired, but her face would light up when she saw me. We started taking breaks together. Instead of scrolling while we drank our coffee, we talked. I learned a lot about her. She was 24. She had graduated art school with honors but felt paralyzed by the pressure to succeed. She was lonely, living in an apartment with two roommates she barely saw. She was incredibly funny, with a dry, dark sense of humor that matched mine perfectly. But the phone was always there. It sat on the table between us like a third wheel. Even when we were talking, her eyes would flicker to it every time the screen lit up. If there was a lull in the conversation for more than 5 seconds, she would grab it. It annoyed me, I admit. I wanted her full attention because I was quickly realizing that I liked her. Not just coffee shop crush liked her. I liked her mind, her laugh, and the way she bit her lip when she was actually focusing on her work. One Friday afternoon, the weather was actually beautiful. Rare sunshine, a gentle breeze, the city looking alive. Sienna was deep in a scrolling hole. She had been watching short clips on an infinite loop for 20 minutes while her lunch went untouched. Sienna, I said, interrupting the noise coming from her phone. She looked up, startled. What? Let us go for a walk, I said. I need to stretch my legs and you look like you are about to merge with that screen. She hesitated, looking at her phone like it was a lifeline. I cannot, I have so much work to do, she said. You have not touched your work in an hour, I pointed out gently. Come on, 10 minutes, fresh air, real photons from the sun. She rolled her eyes, but she stood up. Fine, she said, but only 10 minutes. We walked out of the shop and down the block toward a small park nearby. The change in her was immediate. Away from the Wi-Fi and the blue light, her shoulders dropped. She took a deep breath. She looked at the trees, at the people walking dogs, at the architecture. It is actually really nice out, she said, sounding surprised. I bumped her shoulder with mine. Told you, I said, the graphics out here are incredible, high resolution. She laughed, a real full laugh. Shut up, she said. We sat on a bench, and for the first time she did not pull out her phone. We talked about nothing and everything. Favorite movies, worst childhood injuries, the existential dread of being in your 20s. I looked at her, the sunlight catching the brown in her eyes, and I knew I was in trouble. Sienna, I said. Do you want to get dinner with me? Like a real date, not just a coffee break. She went still. She looked at me, searching my face for any sign of a joke. Me, she asked. Yes, you, I said. You are smart, you are funny, and despite your terrible screen time habits, I really like being around you. She looked down at her hands. I am a mess, Julian, she said quietly. You have your life together. I am just drifting. I am just a guy who enters numbers into a computer, I said. Nobody has it all together. Let me take you to dinner. She looked back up at me and smiled. Okay, she said, okay. We went out that Saturday night. I took her to a Thai place that had dim lighting and great curry. She looked beautiful. She had worn a dress, let her hair down, and put on makeup. She looked like a different person from the hoodie-clad girl at the coffee shop. But the phone was there. She put it on the table, face up. Every buzz, every flash, her eyes darted to it. At first, I tried to ignore it. We ordered drinks. We talked about her art. She was passionate when she spoke about design, her hands moving, her eyes bright. But then, a lull. She grabbed the phone, just checking something. She mumbled. She started typing. Then she scrolled. Just for a second, she said. But it lasted a minute, then two. I sat there, sipping my beer, feeling a cold knot in my stomach. I was right there in front of her, and I was losing to an algorithm. Sienna, I said. She did not hear me. Sienna, I said louder. She looked up, blinking. Sorry, what? Is everything okay? I asked. Is there an emergency? No, just a friend posted something and I went down a rabbit hole, she said, putting the phone down. Sorry. It happened 3 more times during dinner. By the time the check came, I felt frustrated and hurt. We walked out of the restaurant, the air between us awkward. Hey, she said, sensing my mood. Did I do something wrong? I stopped walking and turned to her. Sienna, I had a great time, I said, but I feel like I was on a date with you and your 500 followers. She flinched like I had slapped her. That is not fair, she said defensively. It is just a habit. Everyone does it. I do not do it when I am with you, I said. I want to be with you, here, now, not wherever that screen takes you. She crossed her arms, closing herself off. You do not understand, she said. It is how I cope. It quiets the noise in my head. Maybe you need to deal with the noise instead of drowning it out, I suggested. It was the wrong thing to say. I saw the wall go up in her eyes. You sound like my mother, she snapped. I think I am just going to go home. Sienna, wait, I said, reaching for her hand. She pulled away. I will see you around, Julian. She turned and walked away, pulling her phone out of her purse as she went. I watched the screen light up her face as she disappeared around the corner. The next week was miserable. I went to the coffee shop, but she was not there. Monday, nothing. Tuesday, nothing. I sat at our table, staring at the empty chair. I felt like an idiot. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I did not understand the severity of her anxiety. I sent her a text on Wednesday. Hey, I am sorry if I overstepped. I miss you at the shop. Read at 10:45 a.m. No reply. The silence was louder than the indie folk music. I started to worry. Was she okay? Was she just spiraling alone in her apartment? Friday rolled around. It had been a week since the date. I was about to pack up my laptop and call it a day when the door opened. Sienna walked in. She looked terrible, worse than I had ever seen her. Her hair was unwashed, her skin was pale and splotchy, and she was wearing sweatpants that looked like they had been slept in for days. She did not have her laptop. She just had her phone and her wallet. She walked to the counter, ordered a black coffee, and then turned to leave. She saw me. She froze. I stood up slowly. Sienna, she looked like she wanted to run, but she did not. She walked over to the table, her movements heavy. Can I sit? She asked, her voice cracking. Please, I said. She sat down and put her head in her hands. I did not say anything. I just waited. I have not slept in 3 days, she whispered. I looked at her phone, which was clutched in her hand. I tried to stop, she said. After what you said, I tried to put it away, but the silence, it was too loud, so I went back on, and I could not stop. I have just been laying in bed, scrolling until my eyes burn, watching people live their lives while I rot. I feel like a junkie, Julian. It was a raw, painful admission. I reached across the table and gently pried the phone from her hand. She resisted for a second, then let go. I turned it over and placed it face down on the far side of the table. Then I took her hands in mine. Her hands were cold and trembling. "You are not rotting," I said firmly. "You are struggling. There is a difference." She looked up at me, tears brimming in her eyes. "Why do you even care?" she asked. "I am a disaster. I ruined our date. I ghosted you. Because I know who you are when you look up," I said. "I know the Sienna who draws incredible sketches. I know the Sienna who laughs at my terrible jokes. I know the Sienna who notices when the light hits the buildings just right. That person is still in there. She is just buried under a lot of digital garbage." A tear rolled down her cheek. "I do not know how to fix it," she said. "I am scared I have forgotten how to just be." "You do not have to do it alone," I said. "Let us make a deal." "What kind of deal?" she sniffled. "Give me the phone," I said. "Not forever, just for the weekend. We will spend the weekend together. No screens. We will go to the museum. We will cook food. We will read actual books made of paper. If you panic, if you really need it, I will give it back, but try, just for 48 hours. She looked at the phone, then at me. The fear in her eyes was real. It was the fear of being alone with her own thoughts, but there was something else there too. Hope. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." We left the coffee shop together. I put her phone in my glove compartment. We went to my apartment first so she could shower and nap. She slept for 14 hours straight. Her body simply shut down once the constant stimulation was removed. When she woke up on Saturday morning, she looked disoriented. She reached for the nightstand instinctually, nothing there. Panic flared in her eyes for a second, then she remembered. I came into the room with 2 mugs of coffee and a plate of toast. "Good morning," I said. She sat up, rubbing her face. "I feel weird," she said. "My hands feel empty. That is called withdrawal," I said, smiling. "Drink this." We spent the day in the city. It was difficult at first. Every time we stopped walking or waited for a traffic light, her hand would twitch. She was fidgety. She kept asking what time it was. She wondered aloud what was happening on Twitter. I kept distracting her. "Look at that dog, smell that bakery. What do you think about that graffiti?" Slowly, the twitching stopped. We went to the art museum. For the first time, I saw her really look at art without trying to take a picture of it for a story. She stood in front of a giant oil painting for 10 minutes, just breathing it in. She started talking about brush strokes and color theory. She was brilliant, she was present. That night we cooked pasta at my place. We put on a vinyl record. It was quiet, but it was a comfortable quiet. "Julian," she said, twirling her fork, "this is the longest I have gone without the internet in 5 years. How does it feel?" I asked. "It feels quiet," she said, "but not in a scary way anymore. My brain feels slower, less buzzy." "I like it." She looked at me across the table, her eyes clear and focused. "Thank you," she said, "for not giving up on me." I reached over and held her hand. "Never," I said. "We made it through the weekend." When I gave her phone back on Sunday night, she held it like it was a bomb. She did not turn it on immediately. She just put it in her pocket. "I am going to delete the apps," she said, "at least for a while. I need to get my brain back." I drove her home. Before she got out of the car, she leaned over and kissed me. It was soft and real, and there were no distractions. "I will see you at the coffee shop tomorrow," she asked. "I will be there," I said, saving your seat. That was 4 months ago. We are officially dating now. It has not been a perfect fairy tale. Addiction is hard to break. She has had relapses where she gets sucked back in for a day or two, but she catches herself now. Or I catch her and we go for a walk. She deleted TikTok and Twitter. She set strict screen time limits. Her design work has improved exponentially because she is actually focusing. She landed that pet food branding gig and 2 others. We have a rule: no phones at the table ever. Last weekend we went camping, no service, just a fire, the stars, and us. She looked up at the sky and I saw the reflection of the stars in her eyes instead of a screen. She looked happy, truly happy. She turned to me and smiled, her face illuminated by the firelight. "This is better than any video," she said. I put my arm around her and pulled her close. "Yeah," I said, "it really is. Sometimes you have to disconnect to find a connection. I am just glad she looked up long enough to find me. And I am glad I had the patience to wait for her to load. Be me, happy, in love, touching grass, life is good, the end.